So, any questions?
You guys are moderators on this side, is that?
There you go. Oh, yeah, that's great. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to an extraordinary event. It's rare that we have a foreign minister of a country come to SAIS on a day with breaking diplomatic developments. So we are especially honored and pleased to have Foreign Minister of the Republic of Kosovo, Donika Gërvalla-Schwartz, with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, those of you maybe who don't follow it quite as closely, these are momentous days for the Republic of Kosovo and for its neighbors, including Serbia, and really the whole region. There was a big meeting today in Brussels. Some of you may know. I want to explain this just for those who don't. Prime Minister Kurti was in Brussels today. He met with President Macron, Chancellor Scholz, Prime Minister Maloney, plus the EU High Representative, Foreign Minister, basically Mr. Borrell, and of course Mr. Lajčák. And we'll talk about that in a minute. At the same time, we have Kosovo President Vjosa Osmani is also in the United States. She's out in Iowa, which has a close relationship, military and otherwise, with the Republic of Kosovo. So this is really momentous times. My name, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Edward P. Joseph. I have a long-standing relationship both to SAIS and the Balkans, where I worked for 12 years, including throughout the war years. And I was also the deputy head of the OSCE mission in Kosovo. And I just quickly will mention, because it's relevant to the biography of Foreign Minister Gërvalla-Schwartz, is that my first exposure to the Balkans, to former Yugoslavia, was as a SAIS student, a SAIS Bologna student. And I was there through SAIS with my fellow students at a moment that, if I can say, was crucial and tragic in Foreign Minister Gërvalla-Schwartz's life, as I'll explain to you in a moment when I give you her biography. With me, joining me is, speaking of students and speaking of SAIS students from Bologna, is Nick Callums, who is on the board of the Europe and Eurasia Club. And I also shout out to Kayla Goldstein, the president, and thank you all, Europe and Eurasia Club folks, Kayla, Nick, for putting this together so quickly. And finally, before I introduce more formally our honored guest, shout out as well to SAIS Events for also so quickly for the great work that they always do in putting this event together for us. So, if you'll permit me, Foreign Minister, let me just quickly introduce you. Some of our guests here today may not know your biography, and it's quite interesting. Donika Gërvalla-Schwartz was born in Skopje, actually. When she was 8 years old, her dissident father fled to Germany in the face of severe prosecution by Yugoslavia's communist regime. Gërvalla-Schwartz, her two siblings, and her mother soon followed. So you understand that they went into exile. Then, in Untergruppenbach, Germany, in 1982, this is about the time that I mentioned that I'm with Bologna Center, went and visiting Belgrade at that time. Gërvalla-Schwartz's father and uncle and a friend, this is very serious, were assassinated in what German authorities described as a professional hit ordered by the Secret Service of the Yugoslav regime. Fearing for the safety of her children, Gërvalla-Schwartz's mother moved the family to Tirana, Albania, where Gërvalla-Schwartz enrolled at the age of 16 in the Academy of Arts, from which she graduated as a flutist, as a musician. In 1992, she left Albania to study music and then law in Hamburg, Germany. And then I'm going to quickly let you know that in 1990, Gërvalla-Schwartz helped organize the historic referendum on the independence of the Republic of Kosovo. And in December 1990, she was part of the students' movement in Tirana. And in 1991, she participated in a student hunger strike that became a milestone in the defeat of the communist dictatorship in Albania. 13 years later, the president of Albania awarded Gërvalla-Schwartz, honored her and other strike organizers for their contribution to overcoming the tyranny of communism. Foreign Minister Donika, if I can, also play a crucial role, a highly visible role in advancing Kosovo's independence. Only at the end, though, of the successful NATO-led intervention in 1999 was she able to visit her country for the first time in almost 2 decades. And having put off previous invitations, she agreed in 2021 to become a candidate for parliament. More than 40 years after she and her family were forced to flee Kosovo, Gërvalla-Schwartz entered parliament of the independent Republic of Kosovo with the 5th highest number of votes on the list. And in March 2021, Parliament appointed Gërvalla-Schwartz Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora of the Republic of Kosovo. Welcome, Foreign Minister. Welcome, Donika.
Are you? Okay.
Please.
Sure. Thank you very much, Professor Joseph. It sounds, when I hear all this biography, I feel so old because it is a lot what happened in my biography, but this is just one of the biographies in our country. When you are been facing genocide, war, discrimination, and apartheid-like system just because of being Albanians, that this kind of biographies are not rare. My father, whom you mentioned, was a writer, a journalist, a musician, and he was only 36 years old as he got assassinated in far Germany, just because being a dissident in the communist regime of Yugoslavia was not different than being a dissident in Romania, in Eastern Germany, and in other parts of Europe. Sometimes I have the impression that people who have been visiting former Yugoslavia in the 70s, 80s have seen only the coast and only the nice part of former Yugoslavia and not what really happened with the people. Because there are reasons why a country falls apart. And in opposite to what was said about Germany, that now it is coming together, what belongs together in former Yugoslavia, it fall apart what did not belong together. And Kosovo, as being part of the former Yugoslavia, is only one of the smallest parts of former Yugoslavia, that after a brutal war in the 90s and facing genocide, like Bosnia and Herzegovina did in the 90s as well, could become an independent and free country only after an international intervention led by this country, by the United States and by the NATO alliance, which went to help people to stop genocide and to bring freedom to those who deserved it. So that is why we can talk together of Republic of Kosovo, because I believe your parents did act as it was necessary to act and did not only look in the news and not sending letters, not urging the governments, the politicians. And there you see, and because you are so young and you have a whole life in front of you, there you see how important it is to engage politically, because through political engagement you can change your own biography, but you can change a lot of biographies of people you even don't know. but who depend on your support and your help. And being citizens of the greatest country on earth, of the United States of America, and myself representing the most pro-American people in the world, there we have some discussions with Canada because they pretend being more pro-American, but I believe we win that race. We need to see what do we have in common and what do we are able and willing to put forward. When we speak about Kosovo, most of the people tend to see only the issues, the challenges, the difficulties, and we spend not a lot of time in telling our friends what is Kosovo really. Kosovo is a country of extremely young people. Our average age is younger than 30. That means every second Kosovar citizen is younger than 30. That means that we have the youngest people in Europe, we have the most optimistic people in our region, and we have skilled, multilingual, optimistic, open-minded people that deserve every second of the work that we invest as government, but others as well. So in Kosovo, we have made a long journey from after the war till today, where Kosovo is the champion of democracy and rule of law in our region, in the Western Balkans. And the Western Balkans are not very famous for being rule of law, anti-corruption, anti-organized crime governments fighting for European, Western values and principles. And that's why we are so happy that yesterday, again, one of the important international institutions dealing with rule of law, security, order issues show that Kosovo has again made progress in that field from last year to this year. So while we are trying to do something for our very young people skilled in IT, ITC and other fields, at the same time, we are again facing aggression from our northern neighbor, Serbia. We have a northern neighbor that has not faced the past, that has not distanced from waging wars and genocide against the neighbors. And when you have countries where you have governments and people not facing the past, then the chance of repetition is always there. That's why it's so important in schools, in universities, to talk about the crimes of the past, not to help the people back in the past, but to make it possible in the present and in the future to go without the ballast of the past. On the 24th of September, we have had a paramilitary attack by more than 90 people coming from Serbia with weapons for more than 400 people, and with weapons that are produced in Serbian neighborhood. Troops that we have drone footage in times of advanced technology. We are lucky to be able to bring evidence because the drones are so small and so effective that you can film everything. And after having them been trained deep in Serbia in their army compounds, army facilities, they were come to Kosovo. They hidden in Serbian Orthodox monastery in the hope that our police will overreact and we will have casualties among the monks, among the pilgrims, and so the whole conflict would become a new and other perspective, and that being accusing Kosovo on attacking religious facilities. We are happy that beside the tragic fact that one police officer was killed during the attack, the police of Kosovo, which is an internationally trained police by highest international standards, while we have a small army which is as well trained by the highest NATO standards. This police combated this attack professionally so that we had no atrocities, no casualties among the civilians, and we could close the chapter for a short time. Yesterday, I got from our Minister of Interior the message that we have again got information, intelligence, that additional 400 people are being trained in these military compounds. And this makes me ask, what for? What are they preparing again? And there is the reason why we are in the United States of America. Our president, as you mentioned, is today in Iowa, not only today, the whole week, because we have a very special relationship to the sister state of Iowa, which the National Guard of Iowa has been instrumental in training our military structures and in deepening the cooperation in agriculture, in education, and other. I know that for most of you, maybe Iowa is very far away, but for Kosovo, Iowa is very near to our heart, and we really are very happy on this partnership that we have. So, as you see, for me, it's not easy to talk only about the positive progress, which I would love, because our people deserve that. But we need to face the fact that while we have a war in Ukraine, we have Russia very active on activating all proxies and all allies in something that we call attack on the whole West, because it's not only about Ukraine. It's not only about Nagorno-Karabakh. It's not about Kosovo. It's even not only about Israel. It is that enemies of the West have started their attempts to weaken the West so that we cannot stand anymore for our values, for our principles, for our way of life. And that's why it's so urgent to have all you, your friends, your families, your associations that you have, to address the responsibles in the politics, to look a little bit deeper inside what is happening in Europe and outside of Europe in these very difficult times. Because if we do not defend our way of life, others will try to impose us theirs. And it is not more Russia against Ukraine, it's no more Serbia against Kosovo, it's no more only Hamas against Israel, but it's us, the West, with our values, and them who are against us. So until we do not understand how black and white it has become, we will be very fragile and we will be not able to defend ourselves and our citizens. That's why we are here. Yesterday we had a lot of meetings in the Congress, the Senate, with the NSC and others to try to raise the awareness that it goes far beyond a small conflict between two small countries far away. Relatives of you have been serving as soldiers in the Western Balkans, some of them under very difficult circumstances. Others have been part of the NATO engagement during the 78 days of bombing the military targets of Serbia in Kosovo. And so not to see your generation go the same way, we can and we need to do a lot in these days. And that's why we need to be more active and to address the policymakers, those who are responsible, to be more aware of the big picture of what is happening. I would really love to listen more of what you want to know concretely than to have here long speeches about things that you maybe already know or are not interesting at all for you. So let me conclude here and have the chance on asking your questions and reply to your interest. Thank you very much.
Donika, thank you. That was great. You talked about values. You talked about the past. You mentioned these current dynamics in Brussels, which reflect a clash of values and willingness to confront the past there. What I would like to do here is ask you a few questions, draw out on these developments. If there's time, I actually would like to raise one point about the past, but there may not be time, but I just want to flag it for you. This extraordinary exchange you had at the UN Security Council in April with Serbian Foreign Minister Dacic. This I thought was absolutely revealing and memorable and extraordinary. Those of you, if we don't have time, you can look, just search it, and the UN has basically the transcript, and it's absolutely astonishing to have this exchange there between these two foreign ministers. But let's, and then Nick, with respect to the questions from the students, Nick has, in a very organized fashion, has fielded questions already. So I'm going to turn then to Nick to present and engage with the students, as we do here at SAIS, in a civil and respectful way, and sophisticated way, I should also add. So let's come, if we could, Donika, if we can, let's come to these breaking developments today. So we have just today this extraordinary meeting. You have Prime Minister Kurti, you have President Vučić separately meeting these top EU leaders, plus I presume Escobar was there, the U.S. Special Envoy for the Balkans. So they're meeting Macron, Schultz, and Meloni plus Borrell. So what can you tell us? From what we see from the statement, Kosovo has accepted, it's, so it would appear, this new, I guess, implementation plan that's presented by the five countries, the big five countries as they call it. It seems to be without any reservation. The only condition that I read is about the signature of Serbia, but otherwise it seems as if Kosovo, Prime Minister Kurti, has accepted this proposal, which is a detailed implementation from before. Is that correct?
We have since 2011, we have a process of dialogue that has been facilitated by the European Union. They say they are not mediating, they are facilitating the dialogue. Because it's for us really not easy to speak directly with Serbia, because they never apologize for the crimes that they admitted, that they committed in Kosovo, and because they never changed their approach towards Kosovo. They are not treating us as a country. Would they do that, they would recognize our independence. And in this dialogue process, there were different attempts. First, to have some technical agreements, then to have a bigger political agreement, then again technical agreements, then again political. At the end, as we came in power 2021, we found a process that was dead. We found international partners that wanted to believe that Serbia is preparing to join the European Union, that they are making their reforms, how to prepare for joining the European Union. And then we restarted the negotiations for finding something that we call the normalization of the relations. You see that the wording is very, very careful found, because normalization, behaving as normal neighbors, is the minimum that you need to have. We are not talking about becoming friends. We are talking about letting each other, first of all, for Serbia, letting Kosovo alone and not to intervene in our interior affairs. We have had a lot of agreements since 2011, and not many of these agreements have been implemented. We have, for example, one agreement because we have a bridge dividing a country, not connecting a city, but dividing the city. The bridge as a word is something that connects, but we have the other way around. This bridge between the northern and the southern part of the city of Mitrovica, which is pretty in the northern part of our country, is dividing the city since 1999-2000. And we have agreed 2011 that this bridge should be opened for all citizens, but still in the year 2023, that bridge is not open. And I could mention a lot of these things. It is like in a partnership. When you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, a husband or a wife, that has simply decided not to want to have a normal relation with you, then you can do what you want. You can bring everyday flowers. You can look every day the same movies that you don't like with him or her. You can do what you want. At the end, this partner will divorce or will go apart because the will is not there to find a way. There is only a will to find pretexts how to make your life more difficult. And this is the situation with Serbia. You can have agreements what they want, facilitated, mediated, whatever, via European Union, United States, or whomever. At the end, Serbia will find reasons why not to implement that. The same happened with that agreement that you are mentioning. We have achieved an agreement this year in February about the full it's the basic agreement about the full normalization of the relations. We went to Brussels because we had previously agreed to accept that proposal. Serbia has previously agreed to accept that proposal. Both sides, we went to Brussels to sign the agreement, and guess what? Serbia said, no, we are accepting the agreement, but we are not signing. Now, please help me to understand, why do you accept an agreement and not being ready to sign? And then the European Union, which had a very, very weak strategy and no plan about how to deal with this kind of dialogue, said, okay, not signing today, but next month we will meet again. And then we will sign on the implementation of the agreement, on the steps, the roadmap, the sequencing implementation. We said, okay. 1 month later, we went to North Macedonia, where the meeting was, in the city, in the beautiful city of Ohrid. And there, our prime minister went with the pen and said, okay, so where is the agreement? Let us sign. Serbia said, no, we cannot sign. And the president of Serbia said, I have such an pain in my hand, in my arm, and this pain will not disappear for some years. So this is not a joke when you go there, because it's about the future of our country and about the future of Serbia itself, but no signature. And then the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs has done something that is really remarkable. We didn't have an agreement. We didn't have signatures. He went out and said, yes, we have a deal. And then we said, okay, when the European Union means we have a deal, then we have a deal. We didn't have a deal because you need two sides to have a deal. 24 hours after that, Vučić, again, the president of Serbia, declared for media, I haven't agreed to anything, I haven't made any commitment. So it was clear that they are just playing around. But, and this is how sometimes international politics is, how mediation and negotiations are, then the European Union and our American partners told us that you need to fulfill some preconditions so that this agreement can be implemented. And we said, no preconditions. We have agreed on something. Now let us fully implement what we have agreed. And it went forth and back. And at the end, the European Union put the whole blame on our side for having the agreement, for being ready to fulfill and implement that agreement, and put sanctions, some measures on the Republic of Kosovo because, and this was the explanation of the American ambassador in Kosovo, the ambassador of the United States of America in Kosovo, because the government of Kosovo didn't listen to the advices of the partners. You are old enough to know that if somebody asks you to listen to something, you need to be convinced and not to listen. And what is normal in the interpersonal relations is even more normal in interstate relations. But what happened on 24th of September has shown that we were right. Serbia was not interested in negotiations. Serbia was not interested in dialogue, not interested in results. They were preparing for war, and they just showed up to pretend to be interested. Now, today, in Brussels, to conclude this very long story since 2011, we have received last week a new proposal of the European Union together with the United States that is a proposal on, this is a draft on something that is called the Association of the Serb Majority Communities in Kosovo. You need to know that Kosovo has not only the youngest constitution in Europe, but we have a constitution that has been written by experienced international diplomats, like the former president of Finland, Martti Ahtisaari, who, by the way, passed away just some days ago. And this
Nobel Peace
Europe,
Prize. Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, Nobel Peace Prize, yes. And this constitution is not only the youngest one, but it contains the most extended rights for minorities that you can find anywhere in Europe. Serbia were pretending all the time that you need even more for the Serbs in Kosovo because this would be not enough. And with this new proposal, who for the first time was respecting the concerns of Kosovo and the constitutional framework of Kosovo, we said, okay, this is really not a good proposal, but this draft is better than anything else. So let us go to Brussels and let us say yes to our partners. And that's what happened today. We said we are ready to sign again, but only if you will bring us the signatures or on 3 documents from Alexander Vučić. First, the barrier, because if we have an agreement, where is the problem to sign? Second, the implementation plan. Please bring us the signature. And third, the signature for this draft that you presented us and that Serbia should accept. They were not able. We knew that Serbia will not say yes to anything that will bring progress in the normalization process, and that happened today as well. So the next round of negotiations will be planned, but Kosovo is not going to participate in any kind of direct negotiations with Serbia until our partners in the United States and in Europe do put sanctions on Serbia for the act of open aggression against the Republic of Kosovo, against the attempt to have a Donbass-like occupation of territories of Kosovo with paramilitary little green men. So this is where we are at the moment. We have again shown that we are constructive in the process, but to be very honest, we do not expect Serbia to make any moves.
So if I can add on, in addition to the sanctions that you'd like the United States and Europe to implement against Serbia, are there any concrete steps or maybe a change of approach you would like to see, especially the Europeans, take to this facilitation or this negotiation to help further the discussion, because even after today, we saw that President Vučić said, even with this document or regardless, he will never accept an independent Kosovo. What steps need to be taken by Europe to bring the dialogue to a point where actual normalization is feasible?
You know, there are reasons why this dialogue process has failed constantly. Because when you do not have a strategy how to achieve the results, you will fail at the end. And the reason is that you do not have. Why did Russia not stop the process of democratization of the Eastern European countries before? Because there was this famous word of deterrence. They were afraid if they act, the West will do the same. The same approach we didn't have with Serbia. What is the position of the European Union? What we believe that the European Union can do and must do so that they will give the whole process a chance is, first, we have 5 countries in the European Union who have not yet recognized Kosovo. So the European Union needs to recognize Kosovo as a whole. So the United States and the European Union member states need to engage with those 5 so that they recognize the Republic of Kosovo. Why? Because as long as the question of the borders in the Balkans is open, the way to have new wars in the Balkans will remain open. The second thing is we need more NATO in our region. We have meanwhile 3 member states. We have Albania as NATO member, we have North Macedonia as NATO member, and we have Montenegro as NATO member. This has only made the Balkans more stable and peaceful. We need Kosovo to be very soon the next member of NATO, and we need to concentrate all of our work so that this can happen. We know that cannot happen immediately, but the next step, and this not anywhere, but now in this December should be the Partnership for Peace, where a lot of countries are members who do not aspire the membership in the NATO, but we do.
Like Serbia.
Yes, like Serbia, Belarus, and others. More than 90% of the people of Kosovo do support NATO and EU membership. So this is a must for us to fight for that. And this will only make it easier to give the dialogue a chance. But when you treat unequally 2 partners, yes, Serbia is economically stronger than Kosovo. Serbia is bigger, but Serbia is an absolute proxy of Russia in our region. The whole influence coming in our region from Russia is coming through Serbia. Serbia is the only country in the Western Balkans not applying sanctions against Russia after they started the war against Ukraine. They say they cannot because they are very dependent from the Russian oil and gas. Germany was more dependent than Serbia from Russian oil and gas. When you want, there was a coalition, a broad coalition of European countries to find a way how to come out of this dependency. And nobody would refuse Serbia to become part of that coalition. But it goes much deeper between Serbia and Russia. You have not only economic ties, you have cultural, traditional, religious ties that go deep, deep in the Serbian identity, and that you cannot change through the invitation for economic development.
Donika, let me ask you mentioned September 24th. You mentioned the requirement for the EU and US to put sanctions. And we should point out here, as you noted, that your country had measures, as Mr. Esteban, and still have, yes, that they imposed that are still in place. Do you believe that the EU and US appreciate the seriousness of what happened and what was planned for September 24th? Your government has very carefully prepared documents and evidence showing this, to those of you who are not familiar, this incredible cache of weapons and military-style vehicles, and now I see U.S. Messer using the term paramilitaries. Do you believe, and this is what's so revealing about this meeting today and why this is so extraordinary, the timing here today, that those leaders, President Macron, Chancellor Scholz, Prime Minister Meloni, do you believe that they and their U.S. and the EU counterparts understand what this meant? And I note here that Mr. Borrell on the 24th used the term aggression in his statement. So do you believe that they grasp this, that this reveals something fundamental, and therefore a policy and approach to Belgrade should change, or do you see this as business as usual, as Prime Minister Kurti said it must not be?
I believe that it was a wake-up call for everybody in Europe and for statesmen as well, because they understood that a lot of the assumptions made during the last years were wrong. I don't want always to repeat that we warned. Since 2.5 years, we are really every day warning that we are walking into the catastrophe if we do not take the important steps. But I'm not convinced from the reactions in the last months, because since the 24th of September, it's a month ago, and it was enough time to be clear in the statements, not only to condemn violence and the attacks and the aggression, but to have the results of investigations, because the evidence is overwhelming. It's really overwhelming. Everybody who wants to know what has happened on 24th of September can know that, because we have made everything very transparent and very open. We have nothing to hide about that. But the fact that no sanctions, no consequences for Serbia followed after that, that they have been a kind of trying to continue business as usual and repeating we need the dialogue. Yes, we need dialogue, because the opposite of dialogue is war. But I do not think that our Western partners have a plan how to deal now with Serbia. I believe they have understood that they have been betrayed by Serbia, but I do not believe that they have already a plan, and that Hamas started the war against Israel will not make it easier for all our partners to be very effective in the response.
Understand. Donika, I'm going to ask one follow-up here, and then I'm going to let Nick draw out these, continue with the student questions. What I want to ask you, we've talked about the September 24th and what this has revealed. What about, and I was recently in Kosovo, and I went to Mitrovica, and I went to Banska, to the monastery there. Tell us, what about your government's posture towards the Kosovo Serbs? How to show them that Belgrade does not have their interests at heart, is not representing the interest, is endangering their interests, and that Pristina and the government of the Republic of Kosovo does. What can you say about the posture? You know that there's concerns, clear justification to have the special police because we see the threat. At the same time, you know that there are concerns and complaints from Kosovo Serbs that it's intimidating. Even as they, and I can witness this, tell me, Kosovo Serbs, just 2 weeks ago, that they do trust the Kosovo police. But they have a lot of concerns and complaints about the special police. What can you say about the relationship with the Kosovo Serbs?
The Serbs in Kosovo, who are between 3 and 4% of the population, because if you hear of all these clashes, you believe we have a situation of 40, 60 or 70, 30%. There are some 2 to 4% are really not in a good situation. Why? Why is the North so interesting for Serbia? It is not because it's just near to Serbia, but because in a kind of no man's land in the past, in the north, organized crime was thriving. You could have all nations, not only the Serbs, but the Albanians and the Bosniaks and the Turks and others cooperating excellently in the north because the former governments simply didn't send the police there for rule of law and rule and order. So you could do in the north what you wanted to do. And for example, we have closed 9 narcotic labors. Do you say labor to that? Labs. Who are worth more than 300 million euro. People are angry, not because we are implementing rule of law in other parts of the country, but because we are addressing these issues in the north as well. So gangs, people, criminals, and one of them, the Vučić man for Kosovo, his name is Milan Radojčić. He is the deputy president, the vice president of the Serbian political party representing in our parliament the Serbs of Kosovo. And this Milan Radojčić is known, not well known, in Kosovo for the Serbs as somebody who is very brutal to them. Intimidating. For example, when you are a family, a normal Serbian family in North Mitrovica, you have a son in your age and he wants to become police officer. And to become police officer in Kosovo, you need to apply in the police academy and there to be recruited. And after that, you can go, when you are Serbian, you can go in the north and be a policeman. You know what happens with people who are ready to engage with the normal institutions in Kosovo? They will burn down Radojčić's people, they will burn down your car, they will beat your children up, they will burn down your house. So for the Serbs in Kosovo, it's so difficult because Serbia is not engaging in the dialogue to fight for their individual rights. Vučić is engaging to keep the leverage and the control over their elected mayors. From our side, from the side of the government of Kosovo, and we pretend to be their government as well, we have not been successful to find the ways how to address their needs. Because when they are scared, they are afraid, they are intimidated, if they have the contact to the central authorities in Kosovo, then how can we find that way? From my first day as minister, I have asked the OSCE ambassador in Kosovo, the representatives of US, Germany, France, K4, all of them, please help us in building these bridges to the normal citizens of Kosovo in the north. Help us to open a way for them so that they can see that this government and our prime minister, for example, speaks always in their language when he addresses their needs. But I must admit, by all the really good successes that we have had in other fields, we have not been very successful in addressing them and their needs. And there is where we need the support of our partners, because alone they are afraid, they will not dare to contact us and to discuss together. We need this dialogue process to move from dialogue with Vučić to dialogue of the institutions of Kosovo with the citizens of Kosovo in the Serbian majority municipalities. This would be successful.
Understand. And here, Foreign Minister, I come to where we started, which is today's discussion. And those of you who don't know, the long-standing Serbian demand has been over this association. It's a form of autonomy. The counselor to the Secretary of State, Derek Chalet, has said that. It's a form of autonomy, and there's very particular things about granting autonomy, but I want to emphasize this significance of this meeting today in Brussels, this very high-level meeting where Prime Minister Kurti has accepted what is apparently this proposal of the U.S. and the major EU countries for the implementation of this, and then requesting the signature. So that's in and of itself that's quite significant because it's quite detailed. I understand.
Yes, but important is to know that we never rejected any kind of self-management for any minorities, communities, which is not violating our constitutional order, our laws, the way how our country functions. But you may know that we have in Bosnia-Herzegovina this entity, Republika Srpska, which is not only paralyzing the whole state, but which is threatening now to leave the federation. So we do not need that again in the Balkans. And all the proposals that we had until now were really in the same fashion like this Republika Srpska in Bosnia-Herzegovina. So everything that helps communities to feel better respected and organized, no problem for us, but it needs to respect our constitutional order, and it cannot be an additional level of power. It needs to have coordinating and cooperating functions. This is all that this mechanism can have.
Exactly, and presumably these latest terms, the highly detailed terms are presumably consistent with that. And I just finally want to mention, because you raised it and correctly, the overarching importance of having all EU really and all NATO countries in particular recognize Kosovo, and this is the key. And I just want to mention for everyone here that we put out a report here at SAIS, Foreign Policy Institute, with the Wilson Center. You can easily find it. Explains this. The executive summary explains this, and Foreign Minister Gërvalla-Schwartz is absolutely correct. Why this is the essential condition, not just for Kosovo, but for Serbia as well, to liberate Serbia and for its own EU path. And the title of that is From Crisis to Convergence. So you can find that on SAIS and also the Wilson Center. Nick, please, I know you have questions.
Sure. Well, if it's okay, we can just take a few questions. I'd like to first turn, if I can, talk about some of these themes broadly. Damir Kachapor has a question. If you'd like to ask it, or I can ask it for you, whatever. You can ask it. Sure. I'll give you exactly, because it's a good question, and part of your portfolio is obviously the very large Kosovo diaspora, and Kosovo is a very young country, but it has also been faced with a large challenge of many young people moving away to places like Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. What parts of your work are you focusing on, and what are the main points of your government that are making it possible, or at least attempting to convince young people to either stay or return? And this is an interesting time, especially because the first round of visa liberalization for Kosovo will begin next year, and that will obviously have a very large impact in where young people are able to go.
If you like, we can take 2 or 3, so
sure.
that I can.
Let's say if any questions from the audience as well that we'd like. Kayla, do you have anyone? Albert, would you like to ask a question as well?
I wrote it down. It's a simple question. What do you wish the world knew more about Kosovo, or like understood more about Kosovo?
Okay.
And we'll take one more if we can. Yes.
Yes. So, what do you think it will take to get broader global recognition of Kosovo's sovereignty, and what do you think have been success factors in recognition that Kosovo has already gotten on a global scale?
Okay. So I think the last. Please.
The foreign ministers had a question in regards to looking at the Balkans, which is something out of it. We're looking at North Macedonia and the process of the EU, and looking at the Balkans and the process of the EU. I would love to hear your feedback.
Okay.
Okay, let's go.
So I take the question about the recognitions, because Kosovo has always been only then successful with the recognitions when our American partners first place and then others have been engaged in that. It is not more than 115 countries have already recognized Kosovo. Those who wanted to recognize Kosovo have done that already. Now we have the more specific, more hard cases. We have a lot of other influences in the world. China, Russia will not support any countries in recognizing Kosovo because in China it's about Taiwan and in Russia it's about Serbia. So it will become a challenge, each recognition. But I believe, and the UN membership will be a challenge, but we have very successful countries like Switzerland, for example, who very late joined the United Nations. And until our American partners are not ready to restart a new wave of engagement about recognition together with us, we try to deliver at home the arguments why Kosovo needs to be recognized. Democracy, rule of law, economic development, etc., etc. This is what we can do home. And behaving as a reliable international partner and things like that. But without help of our partners, we will not be successful. And I have seen that during this dialogue process, even our strongest partners, closest partners, have tried to use our membership in international organizations, like, for example, the Council of Europe. We have applied and we are on a good way to be the next member of the Council of Europe. But even our closest partners like United States and Germany have tried to use this as a kind of pressure against us, as a kind of do this, then you will get that. And I don't think that this is part of the trade. This should be a principled positioning of our partners in helping us with the recognitions. I know that North Macedonia has been for a long time in the Western Balkans the example of making compromises. For Greece, they changed the name. For Bulgaria, they have now an agreement. That is not bad. But the Russian and Serbian influence in North Macedonia are really very strong at this moment. You told that I'm born in Skopje, in the North Macedonian capital, because my mother comes from there. And parts of my family are in Skopje. And when I ask them about their opinion, what is happening in Skopje, they pretend that this Bulgarian-Macedonian agreement is totally the opposite of what it is in fact. And why do they do that? Because the fake news campaigns, the Russian-Serbian fake news campaigns and propaganda in North Macedonia is as high as in Kosovo and other countries in the Western Balkans. So while we have had Macedonia as a country aspiring to join the European Union, we will soon have elections in North Macedonia. And I'm really afraid that we will have in North Macedonia a terrible nationalist government which will join Serbia in destabilizing the region even more. So I hope I'm wrong, but I do see the signs and there is nobody taking care about that. On the other
Can I
side,
jump in just
yes.
quickly before you do? There's a great article in SAIS Review that says that came out earlier this month that discusses this issue.
Yes.
I know it's a great article because I wrote it.
And what everybody needs to know more about Kosovo is maybe to try to point out a little bit more of what Kosovo really is. When people ask me, internationals ask me, what is the one word with which you would describe your country, your people? I would say resilience. And I have been 2021 visiting Israel for the first time. And to be honest, I expected to see a country where people are afraid because I'm mother of 5. I know how difficult it is when you put your child in the bus and you do not know if the child will arrive at the school or not. And I really had an imagination that Israel is a difficult country. I found there people who reminded me pretty much on people in Kosovo. Open, optimistic, full of energy, full of dynamic, creative, open-minded. So Kosovo is like that. And we talk too little about what Kosovo is, and we spend a lot of time on talking what the threat is coming from the neighborhood, but we cannot change Serbia. Serbia will need time and time to change themselves. We can only change ourselves and our history and our country. So we need more support in showing the real face of Kosovo, this very sympathetic, this very young, very open-minded face of Kosovo. And I think this would be something where we rely a lot of you and your networks to spread a little bit the news that Kosovo is a good place to be. We have a wonderful nature. Kosovo is really a good place to invest. We have the highest standard in our region on rule of law, on fighting corruption, organized crime. All the international institutes measuring anti-corruption measures do put us on the head of all the countries in the region. But on the other side, as you mentioned, we have very young people, and mobility will become something that not only Kosovo, but all European countries will face. I spent 30 years in Germany, and I know that every year, even if they complain a lot about migration, but every year, more people do leave Germany that are coming to Germany. For example, they are not only aging, but they are losing people as well. Because in this world, when we have internet and with a click, you can see what is happening in Sydney today. The attempts to be part of the bigger world are really very big. And Deputy Lisa Gashi, who is the person dealing not only with diaspora, but first place with diaspora, says always that mobility is not only a risk, but it's a chance. It is a right of people. I, as a free citizen of the Republic of Kosovo, am able to choose where do I want to live. As a government, you need to create an environment where people who leave are ready to come back again. And we thought that rule of law is maybe the first and most important step to achieve this success. This is nothing that we say can be, that the numbers of those who come back are higher than those who leave, and we will have now luckily from the 1st of January next year, the Kosovars moving in Schengen zone without visa. But we need to prepare our country so good that our diaspora will seek for opportunities to come back and to invest. We are maybe the country that I know, we have studied a lot of models, but you will not find a second diaspora beyond the Jewish diaspora that is so strongly connected to the country of the origin. You will not find a second one. And I'm part of that. My children are Germans, but they are Kosovars as well. They are Albanians as well. And my son, my youngest son, who is 23, he had to choose where is he going to make his practice semester during his studies with Erasmus, and he chose to come to Kosovo. And he pretended before that to know Kosovo, but only after he came for 6 months without family, but being part of the academic and business environment in Kosovo, he went back to Germany knowing that now for the first time he knows Kosovo really. He has friends there, he has partners there. So this is something that we are engaging in a lot of programs, how to attract the second, third generation, the young professionals and others. And we have copied a lot of very successful models from Israel, from Ireland, from India and others. And so we try, the more we improve the standards in our country, the less we are afraid that people will leave the country. So we will find a balance, because we have benefited a lot of our diaspora, not only economically, not only the money, it is more the democratic experience that they bring back in our country when they come for vacations, when they talk to their families, because this has made Kosovo to be champion of democracy in our region. The diaspora is a very important pillar of our social and democratic development.
Thank you.
Should we close it?
I think so.
Okay. If there are no other urgent questions, I want to thank our honored guest here, Foreign Minister Donika.